Colleagues, good afternoon. I'm noticing that we are now past the hour of 3 in New York, and I'm getting indications that all the speakers are ready and they're all on screen. I can see them. I'm also wondering whether the audience are equally online, whether if you can just get me a thumbs up for us to officially commence. Thank you, Sai. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, now on behalf of the co-chairs of the SIDS partnerships framework and the United Nations Committee on SIDS partnerships, who are with us today, and also on behalf of the Joint Secretariat of the SIDS Partnership Framework, UNDESA, and the Office of the High Representative for Least Developed, Landlocked Developing, and Small Island Developing States. I want to welcome all the colleagues who are joining us this afternoon to this webinar series. We are organizing this series this morning or this afternoon, depending on wherever you are joining us from. This afternoon, we are targeting colleagues from as far away as the Pacific, and we hope that they are all hearing us very clearly. So without any further ado, I want to just repeat the purpose of our briefing is to bring colleagues information about the SIDS Partnerships Award, and also hear the stories of those who have previously awarded this award in the past, and we have stories from them and how they are performing at this time. So without any further ado, I would like to also inform colleagues that the United Nations Steering Committee on SIDS Partnership is presently being co-chaired by the permanent representative of Latvia to the United Nations and the permanent representative of Maldives to the United Nations. And this afternoon, we are very fortunate to have with us Mr. Hussein Hassan Mohammed Hussein, the second secretary of the permanent mission of Maldives to the United Nations, and also Mr. Emils Dombrovskis. And I'm sorry, Emil, for pronouncing this. These are the third secretary of the permanent mission of Latvia. They're here to deliver for us some opening remarks. And without any further ado, I'll first invite Hussein from the Maldives to deliver the remarks.
Thank you, Sai. On behalf of the permanent representative of the Maldives to the United Nations, His Excellency Dr. Ali Nasir Mohammed, it is my pleasure to join you today for the briefing to stakeholders on the UN SIDS Partnership Awards 2025. Multi-stakeholder partnerships was a landmark outcome from the third International Conference on Small Island Developing States in Apia in Samoa. The Samoa Pathway for the first time recognized the importance of partnerships for sustainable development, especially in SIDS. The Antigua and Barbuda Agenda for SIDS, Abbas, reiterated this importance last year in St. John's, precisely due to the role of partnerships in transforming the development landscape in SIDS. One of the biggest development challenges for SIDS, like the Maldives, is the lack of state capacity. Our needs are numerous, but our resources are limited. Multi-stakeholder partnerships allow SIDS to promote sustainable development without creating additional burdens for the state, whether it is addressing climate change and other environmental issues or capacity building programs in SIDS. Multi-stakeholder partnerships have proven to be a successful and viable approach to sustainable development. The UN SIDS Partnership Awards recognizes these successes with the hope of encouraging greater partnerships and greater successes. I am pleased to see that this webinar is attended by a number of stakeholders. The interest in the SIDS Awards is a testament to the interest of stakeholders to support the sustainable development of SIDS. I take this opportunity to thank you all for your interest in the awards and also, most importantly, for your support to SIDS. I will now provide a brief background of the UN SIDS Partnership Awards. The UN SIDS Partnership Awards was established by the UN member states through the GA Resolution 76/203 in 2021 to recognize and reward the efforts of the best and most noteworthy genuine and durable partnerships in the implementation of the Samoa Pathway. The co-chairs of the steering committee of the SIDS partnership framework, the permanent representatives of the Maldives and Latvia to the United Nations, are overseeing this process as part of the SIDS partnership framework. The awards provide an opportunity to reward the most successful SIDS partnerships, highlight best practices, increase the visibility of the SIDS partnership framework, motivate the creation of new SIDS partnerships, and incentivize the registrations of new ones. The SIDS Partnerships Awards are given in each of the three dimensions of sustainable development: 1, economic; 2, social; and 3, environment, as stipulated in the Resolution 76/203. This year marks the 4th UN SIDS Partnership Awards, and it's the first one since the adoption of the Antigua and Barbuda Agenda for Small Island Development States. We have updated the rules and guidelines to align with the new outcome document. Details will be provided by the Secretariat later in this briefing. The deadline for this year's awards is Friday, the 13th of June, the last day of the UN Ocean Conference. Over the past 3 years, we have received many applications from impactful partnerships dedicated to advancing the sustainable development of SIDS. We are delighted to welcome several past awardees today who will be sharing their valuable experience with us. I encourage all partnerships advancing sustainable development in SIDS to apply for these awards. And I will now hand over to my co-chair Mels to talk about new elements that have been added this year. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much, Azan. Good morning, good day, good afternoon. On behalf of the permanent representative of Latvia, Her Excellency Ambassador Mrs. Sanita Pauļa-Deslandes, I'm pleased to be here today and see your interest in SIDS Partnership Awards. My name is Emils Dombrovskis. As it was mentioned, I'm representing the permanent mission of Latvia to the UN here in New York. And it is my honor this year to serve as the co-chair of the judging panel for SIDS Partnership Awards. Now maybe turning briefly to the updated elements for this year, for this year's applications. Before the ABAS was adopted, we had categorized the Samoa Pathway array in 3 dimensions that it was mentioned of sustainable development: economic, environmental, and social. Since adoption of ABAS, we have also categorized the ABAS priority areas into these 3 dimensions. Some of these areas have been identified as cross-cutting, and applicants are required to choose one of these 3 categories that most closely align with the objectives of their partnerships. We have been using the SMART criteria for evaluation, meaning SID-specific, measurable and monitorable, achievable and accountable, research-based and results-focused, and timeline for implementation and transparency by all parties. However, this year a new criterion, innovation, has been added, and the UN Secretary General defines innovation at the UN as doing different things and doing things differently. Innovation can be adopting new approaches to problem solving, exploring alternative methods, enhancing existing systems, and taking risks to create something really original. It extends beyond technological advancements and the use of digital technologies. Turning to the awards ceremony, it will take place towards the end of this year in New York, and subject to finding, one representative of the winning partnerships will be invited to New York to receive the award. Winning partnerships will also have the opportunity to be invited to speak at the SIDS partnerships events and or webinars as successful partnerships and connect to potential partners and donors. The Secretariat could facilitate connecting focal points of the winning partnerships and potential partners and donors. As the chair of the judging panel, I will be chairing the virtual discussions with the top nominees, and I look forward to receiving as many applications from partnerships that are contributing to the sustainable development of SIDS and the implementation of ABAS and the SDGs. The detail of the application process will be provided further by the Secretariat, and very interested to hear from you next. And now I'll hand back the floor back to the facilitator. Thank you very much.
Thank you kindly, Emil and Hussein, our co-chairs, for those remarks. I invite us now to move to the next of our item. Here we are now going to hear some insights from the past award-winning partnerships. And we are going to hear how their partnerships has aligned with the SMART criteria and how their partnerships has been impacting the small island developing states. And also how their experience after winning the award has gone and how useful and some useful suggestions that we might get from them. So this afternoon, colleagues, we are very fortunate indeed that we have with us the Unleashing the Blue Economy of the Caribbean partnerships, which won the 2022 economic category in the SIDS Partnerships Award. And this afternoon, they are being represented by Ms. Carrie Ann Cadman, the Regional Environmental Manager in Latin America and the Caribbean of the World Bank, who will be making us a presentation. Carrie, we are very happy to have you, and we are looking forward to your presentations. You now have the floor.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. And I'm honored to be here today to first and foremost, to thank the United Nations and all of the partners involved in this illustrious award. The UN SIDS Partnership Award is a very important and well-regarded award globally. And winning this back in 2022 for our Unleashing the Blue Economy of the Caribbean was really paramount to setting the stage for a highly successful regional, national, and global program. And I'll go into some of those details in a minute. I've organized my talk in 3 points. First, how the Unleashing the Blue Economy of the Caribbean series of projects known as UBEC, how it aligns with the SMART criteria. We're then going to go to a beautiful video that our partners produced to illustrate how the partnership impacts the Eastern Caribbean SIDS. And then we'll come back and I'll just be highlighting a little bit of some tips on the award process and highlight some of the innovations coming out of the UBEC family of projects. Let me go at a clipper pace now so that we can get to the video, which is quite nice. And please know that on the site, on the UN SIDS Partnership Award site, you can go to the UBEC page where we'll be putting videos and blogs and posts and a lot of the information since 2022 of how we've progressed. So UBEC is a longitudinal and horizontal program. It's designed to be carried out over a 15-year period in 3 distinct 5-year phases. It is capitalized at $90 million as a regional development program that looks at 3 key sectors in the blue economy. It looks at fisheries, of course. It looks at solid waste management, including marine pollution. And it also looks at tourism. So we're looking at both the non-living and living sides of the blue economy. We're looking at jobs, we're looking at entrepreneurs, and I'll be talking about these innovations in a moment. So UBEC Phase 1, the first 5 years of the 15-year window, has $90 million, and this is blending national and regional International Development Association resources with a pro-blue multi-donor trust fund recipient executed trust fund series of grant resources, as well as additional resources from our crisis response window. So it's a package of financing at $90 million, and it's for Grenada, St. Lucia, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and it's really tied together with a very nice bow with the OECS Commission, the regional entity for the Eastern Caribbean. In terms of aligning with the UN's SMART criteria, through its comprehensive approach, I'd like to highlight just very quickly in terms of the SIDS specific. Of course, UBEC is tailored to the Caribbean, and we didn't say Eastern Caribbean because now in Phase 2, we're welcoming Jamaica, Dominica, Antigua, Barbuda to our fold. We've already welcomed Belize. So it's the wider Caribbean that we're looking at and establishing a blue economy platform. And we've done that quite successfully in the last few years. So SIDS specific is from Barbados out to Belize. We want to include all of the Caribbean SIDS in this investment platform. UBEC is really tailored to the unique needs of the Caribbean SIDS, and it's about the sustainable use of their living marine resources for economic growth, for jobs and livelihoods, and to preserve ocean health. It builds on the previous regional partnerships that we've had. The World Bank has been involved and working with our partners in the Caribbean for the past 12 years, and it builds on our earlier Caribbean regional oceanscape project. Some of the innovations that we're looking at is promoting transboundary and regional cooperation through our micro, small, and medium entrepreneur, Blue Economy Entrepreneurs grant program, and we'll showcase this in the video, so I won't go further into that. So on SIDS specific, that's really at the heart of the design. On the M in SMART, measurable and monitor, you'll see on the SIDS website that we have very specific targets that we're monitoring. We're going to have 8 regional and national policies incorporating Blue Economy principles by 2026. We're going to be providing 6,000 households in these island countries with access to improved solid waste management services. And these types of metrics and many others really highlight the balance of sustainable livelihoods and preserving the integrity and stability of marine ecosystems. On the A in SMART, achievable and accountable, we want to make sure that the phase design ensures that the goals of each phase remain realistic and achievable. So we've designed it specifically with that in mind. For the R on resource base and results focus, again, we're looking at by 2027 to have 5 marine protected areas under active management. Some of these are trans-frontier marine protected areas, and this ties in with the 30 by 30 target as well. We're applying a multitude of resources to strengthen value chains and fisheries and strengthen these market linkages while underscoring a sustainable tourism sector. And finally, for the T on timeline for implementation and transparency for all, it is a multi-year investment platform with a very clear timeline of implementation at the national level and at the regional level. By the end of phase 1, we're going to have a regional Blue Economy data sharing platform, which will be operational and facilitating data exchange in these core growth sectors, and obviously collaboration. I'd like to now go to the second part of my talk, which is the video, which is really going to showcase what the heart and soul of the UBEC series of projects is. So Saiko, could I ask you to showcase the video, and then we'll come back and I'll just highlight a few points about the award process and some innovations. Thank you.
The blue economy for me is opportunities available that involves the ocean. I'm also thinking about the other aspects of things that happen on land that impacts what we do in the ocean. So for me, I'm looking at it as a holistic bundle, so to speak. I think there are vast opportunities available, opportunities that can help create career.
I think it caught up there.
Apologies, there's a technical issue.
Rare paths for people. The ocean is, 3/4 of the world is the ocean versus the 1/4 on land. So there are vast opportunities available for young people to create, wealth for themselves.
I work with an NGO, Waterways. We do environmental education with children in schools and communities. Well, my job entails designing our programs, applying for grants, implementing grants in the communities, and we're big on water quality and educating persons on the quality of water and the impacts of what we do on land and how it affects what's in the water. For us, predominantly, it's the coastal nearshore zone. I'm going to become a fisherwoman. That's my retirement plan, to be quite honest. Once I am done with education, I'm going to go into fishing because it's a very profitable business.
Having a career in the blue economy can be a life-changing experience. Mentally and physically, it also allows you a vast amount of opportunities. I get to travel, I get to meet new people all the time. It's very interesting. I don't get bored. So for me, that's a big thing. Also, I was able to at least earn an income, that could take care of me, my family, send my kids to school, and I didn't have to depend on somebody else to do that for me. So if I were to be telling myself all what I have gone through, I think I'll do it again.
Psycho, thank you so much. And we'll put these videos on the website. We have a series of these. What I really love about this is it's showing you that through the UBEC series of projects, we're supporting women entrepreneurs. We're looking at gender equality. We're looking at small, medium entrepreneurs in the Eastern Caribbean to be able to foment stronger business models and have additional financing to scale up their businesses. So we see that the regional cooperation across these three countries and even more broadly is really having quite an impact and leading to quite success. What did we find in terms of the innovation? We found that our grant program to the Blue Economy entrepreneurs really allowed for a much stronger platform and voice for these entrepreneurs. So our grants are on the order of 50,000 to 200,000, so significant for small entrepreneurs to be able to scale up. We've introduced through UBEC the Coast Parametric Risk Insurance. It's the first global insurance product for the fisheries sector. It was triggered last year in Grenada. So Grenada got a payout for their fisher and fisher folk, both onshore and offshore fishers, to be able to have an insurance product for the fisheries sector. We also have some additional financing going into the UBEC modality now that's dealing with the mounting sargassum challenge across the Caribbean. So it's a very nimble blue economy platform. It allows us to introduce innovation through MSME grants, through parametric risk insurance, and it allows for additional financing within a phase or into the next phase that deals with incoming challenges like the sargassum challenge. And the fourth innovation in the UBEC platform is what we call our crisis response. And this is where it's either a natural disaster, a hurricane, or a volcanic eruption, or as we've seen with the global poly crisis following COVID, the food insecurity challenges of SIDS that are unique to SIDS and how dependent they are on food import. So with the food and fuel price surcharge that we saw post-COVID, that food insecurity escalated in these Eastern Caribbean nations as they were trying to recover their tourism sector. And so we were able to give them $30 million top up for food insecurity. So what's really wonderful about the UBEC family of projects is that it sets the stage for this type of investment platform, introducing innovations, and it's nimble and flexible so we can add in a response to help these countries and the citizens of these countries really truly have a stable economic future and additional jobs, because jobs are going to really be the future in these island countries and across the Caribbean. So in that sense, we've hit 7 targets, the SDG targets: poverty, hunger, gender equality, sustainable economic growth, sustainable consumption patterns, climate change mitigation and adaptation, and of course, SDG 14, very close to my heart, life below water. Let me stop there, but I think that in those 3 moments of meeting the SMART criteria, the video to show you UBEC in real terms, and then really the innovations that we've introduced, and I'm happy to answer questions. Thank you.
Ms. Carrie, thank you very much for that presentation. It shows the good work that you are doing. It's nice to know that 3 years later, the project is expanding and it's being felt on the ground. And thank you for your preparations for this. We appreciate it very much. And I just want to remind our colleagues, for those of you who wish to ask Carrie any question, you're most welcome to please leave your question in the Q&A space in our conversation this afternoon. So I now will move on to the next of our speaker. Now, this was the 2023 economic category winner. We are very happy to have with us Ms. Yaima Rees, the economist, I was informed, from the United Nations Resident Coordinator in Cuba. She will be here to speak to us on the partnership called the Development of an Integrated National Financing Framework for the SDG in Cuba. And Yaima, you now have the floor.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the invitation as well. It was kind of surprise, but hope you find the information I bring interesting, in particular for the new awarded to be in this new year. I'm going to divide my presentation as well in these three questions you ask, but I wanted to show some general remarks at the beginning so you can understand the context in which this project was designed and implemented. Cuba is, as most of you know, Cuba is a developing small island as well that faces standard SIDS challenges of financing, trade, very frequent natural disasters, and many other impacts of climate change. But in our case, these challenges are very much amplified by the economic, financial, and commercial external sanctions imposed to the countries for more than 60 years now. These sanctions isolate the country from international capital markets as well as from global mechanisms available for other countries and SIDS as well for financing internationally. These sanctions also impose restrictions on trade, banking transactions, market access, and many other effects, which makes Cuba a unique and a very particular case regarding the limited financing for SDGs. As a consequence, the country has been suffering from a very severe multidimensional crisis impacting food security, electricity generation, macroeconomic imbalances, demographic and social challenges with very limited fiscal space to manage the economic recovery and implementation of the national development strategy that is completely aligned with 2030 agenda. The joint program support for an integrated national framework for SDGs in Cuba that we call CIFRA was certainly awarded last year, and it was an initiative funded by the UN SDG Fund, and it was implemented between 2020 and 2023. CIFRA developed an unprecedented system of partnerships in the development financing field among the Cuban government in one part, the United Nations, and also academic experts, national, internationals, and public institutions to strengthen their capacities, develop analytical tools, and contribute to rethinking policy strategies aimed at increasing, diversifying, and optimizing sources of development financing. Coming to the first question related to how the project addressed the SMART criteria, I would like to start by saying that the project included, from the very designed and implementation, a few governance mechanisms, including tools for project evaluation and monitoring. The first of them, that was very useful, of course, was a work plan with clearly defined objectives that were achieved through 4 outcomes and 10 outputs throughout the implementation. The second was a roadmap for achieving these objectives, outputs, and outcomes, and I'm going to refer to the roadmap a bit later. And the third one was the system of 23 indicators to monitor the achievement of outcomes and outputs. These 23 indicators allowed all actors or participants in the project to show the expected progress compared to the baseline in the whole implementation period of the project. As part of CIFRA, 30 workshops were held for presenting and validating the results, as well as for building national capacities, with the active participation of nearly 200 national and international experts. More than 20 strategic documents, policy documents, were elaborated with common vision on financing policy recommendations. And in many cases, the usefulness for Cuban authorities went beyond the objectives that were suggested in the project. Actually, the Minister of Economic, the former Minister of Economic, acknowledged CIFRA as a significant breakthrough for the Cuban planning system. I hope you know that in Cuba is a socialist country and it has a planning system instead of a market-based one. Now, in terms of achievable and accountability, the implementation of CIFRA was coordinated through a steering committee and a technical committee. Both spaces were represented by the United Nations implemented agencies that were ECLAC as a lead agency and UNDP, and also a very active participation of the RC office, which I represent. The main project's result was exactly the partnership developed among national actors and the great ownership of national institutions. This partnership built for the project had outlived the original goals. So CIFRA's governance mechanisms have evolved towards long-term spaces for dialogue and good practices for policy analysis and collaboration that are even useful today after the project has ended. This partnership model that we are referring to with the government have been presented also to some of the international cooperation partners in Cuba as a good practice in terms of governance for complex projects and goals achievements amid a complex national context as we have in Cuba. In terms of resource-based and result focus, the approach of the project was also let's say useful. This project, part of the project was implemented in the COVID-19 context, and this forced to adjust and optimize the use of available financial and human resources to achieve the project's objective. And for the first 2 years, it was kind of challenging, the implementation, as we we couldn't implement travel of consultants or experts, so we had to be creative, let's say like this. The selection of experts was tailored to address national priorities, combining local scholars, UN officials, and international consultants. The savings in travel expenses were oriented to hiring extra um, consultants to strengthen technical capacities and achieving the outputs, as well as national capacity building and maximizing the use of knowledge available within the UN system, taking advantage of the technical expertise of the implementing agencies, especially ECLAC. Increasing the knowledge, commitment, and alliance of the UN system with Cuban counterparts. The strong appropriation by the Cuban government and active participation of public officers in project activities resulted in a very important strengthening of local abilities and capabilities, and what we call in a process of consensus building beyond the specific project-related activities. In terms of the timeline for implementation, CIFRA roadmap was the main planning and coordination instruments, and it helped us structuring the implementation in 3 stages. The first of them was the inception phase that was used for the creation of governance mechanisms and presentation of the first assessment exercises. The second was the evaluation phase for the development of quantitative and analytical inputs on development financing challenges, as well as the identification of best practices. And the third and final phase was the policy recommendation, where we achieved the development of the proposal for the integrated national financing framework for Cuba. Coming to the second question on the main impacts of the project on Cuba as a SID country, we would like to mention 4 impacts. First, more than 100 policy recommendations, financing policy recommendations, were delivered to high-ranked authorities to strengthen development financing policies. Secondly, an integrated vision, a joint vision, was built on development financing problems and possible solutions. Third, technical capacities were ensured for policy analysis and best international practices tailored for the Cuban case. And fourth, the partnership developed that opened new entry points for dialogue with the UN in the country. By addressing these challenges, the project advanced the implementations of key and cross-cutting areas for SIDS worldwide. First of them, of course, SDG 17, particularly related to means of implementation, including partnership. But also, CIFRA received an extension that allowed to, let's say, be going beyond the in general financing problems, going into particular areas for SIDS like food security and nutrition in SDG 2, sustainable economic growth, SDG 8, and also employment. Finally, I would like to share that, in our opinion, the main impact of the project was the possibility to start a new generation of UN interventions in Cuba. CIFRA opened a path of innovative projects designed to support catalytic policies and create enabling policy environment to accelerate SDGs, where UN is contributing now, mainly in capacity building, but also in partnership boosting among national actors as a convener towards financing in an extreme context of sanctions and a very sensitive political context. We consider this the most important innovation of the initiative. We tried to do something different and differently for the Cuban case. Some of the things that CIFRA implemented might be like normal or traditional UN functions worldwide, but they were not like that in Cuba. So for us, that was the innovation. Finally, we were asked to share some insights of the awarding process as well. I didn't participate directly, but I would like to share that the award process was very clearly explained and guided. For us, it was easier. What we opted to, it was to do a short presentation, no more than 3 slides, with key information, trying to provide evidence on the impact of the project. We tried to emphasize in those elements that made our initiative unique. Thank you very much again for the invitation, and I'm going to rest open to question in the chat. Over.
Thank you, Yaima. This has been a very elaborate explanation of the work that has continued and has been done since the awarding of the award. It's interesting to note because this is applying to a small island developing states that has a very peculiar and unique situation. And I would like to thank you, colleagues in the United Nations system, with the work and also with the partnerships and the story and the updates that you're giving us today. We noted that the time is flying very fast. We have still one more story to tell, and I will now invite, of course, Marshall, Mr. Donegan. Marshall is representing the Alliance for a Bluer, Greener Caribbean, Bridge to Reef group. This is an environmental category winner, and in 2023 also. So without any further ado, I welcome you again, Marshall. You now have the floor.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thanks for having me. Like, as with the other candidates, it's a pleasure and an honor to be asked to present. I'm going to ask if you're seeing my screen. Are you seeing it? Can you share it?
Yes, we can see it loud and clear.
Absolutely,
Okay.
Absolutely, yes.
All right. So the partnership, or this alliance, is a unique and interesting one because it represented a partnership between 3 agencies that were working on through different approaches. So the Alligator Head Foundation is a nonprofit that was founded in 2016 with the responsibility of managing a no-take zone in Portland, Jamaica. The International Trade Center works with SIDS to look at sustainable fisheries, regenerative tourism, and climate-smart agriculture, while the Coconut Industry Board is a local agency that was working to resuscitate the coconut industry in Jamaica. And so what happened when we were first approached was that we felt that while this was a unique and unconventional partnership, given that we felt there were some synergies, we felt this is an approach that would work. So in terms of the SMART approach, it's traditionally, or it's normally what's done at the foundation. In terms of our strategic outlook, we have tried to ensure that SMART is incorporated in all our planning and project activities. And so while we're a marine-based entity, we recognize that what happens on land has an impact on the marine space, and therefore we could not restrict our efforts or interventions just to the no-take zone. So we started a climate smart agricultural program to look at working with farmers to correct issues. And that represents some of the innovations. Unlike my colleagues, I won't be doing my presentation by segments. I'll kind of mention different areas as I go through. So a part of the innovation was in the climate smart approach in working with the farmers to introduce new technologies and new techniques to both boost productivity as well as help with environmental conservation. And so we worked to establish demonstration plots that showcase the different techniques that could be employed by these farm groups. We looked at increasing production and commercializing output as well as crop diversification. And this was an effort to build resilience. Traditionally, a lot of these communities would have relied on one crop that has been negatively impacted in terms of production, given the variations we're starting to have as a result of climate change. And so with the introduction of our program, we started to introduce new crops that could be planted in innovative ways that incorporated existing techniques, as well as the introduction of new methods of farming. We looked at revenue enhancement. Yes?
Marshall, I'm terribly sorry, but if you are displaying your slide, I tell you that you're not moving.
Okay.
But if you're not intending to display the rest of the slide, is fine. Please carry on, and I apologize for interruption.
I don't know why the slides are not moving, but I'll continue with our slides. The revenue enhancement. We looked at increasing the livelihoods of the persons impacted by assisting with value added products, as well as increasing market linkages. And a key component that we also focused on was training and workshops. So we did a lot of training workshops that were focused on things like rainwater harvesting, which were new to these farmers. We looked at responsible fertilization, and we also looked at workshops on organic farming to reduce the number of farmers that were using fertilizers as additional inputs in their farming practices. And the idea of this was to, as a small island developing state, as with many others, we are very vulnerable as it relates to the impact of climate change. So the idea was to build resilience in these communities through increasing food security, as was mentioned, through our crop diversification efforts, as well as our marine conservation efforts. Locally, a lot of the community members rely on fish as a main protein source, as well as a cheap and readily available food source. We had noticed that the fish stocks were starting to decline and that our fishing industry was being negatively impacted. And so with this intervention, it meant that we could look at protecting fish stocks while introducing innovative means of fishing and transitioning to more sustainable fishing practices. We looked at reducing the vulnerability of the key stakeholders. So that is why the training was so important, and the different capacity development initiatives that we embarked on, specifically as it relates to strengthening the CBOs. Another means of integrating innovation was to look at what was the lead farmer approach. So that focused on identifying the community leaders who had a passion for the work, who were invested in the project, and who could galvanize and mobilize the rest of the community. Through that approach, it ensured that there was always somebody who we could hold responsible for the implementation of the activities. And it also ensured that the project remains sustainable. These individuals have a vested interest, not just in developing their own personal situations, but developing their communities. And so even with the end of the project, they have continued to invest in the community. they have continued to utilize the training, and they're building on the groups that were established during the project. Revenue enhancement is obviously another key part of building that resilience. And so with the crop diversification, it would have mean that the farmers would have additional products that they could sell, but also with the training, they were starting to look at value-added products and how they could add value to what they were providing. A key critical part of what was missing was the market linkages. So a number of persons would have ideas, they would have products that they think were market worthy, but were unable to find the right markets and make the linkages. So this project worked to identify those linkages and make the contacts for the community, which resulted in enhanced revenue generation amongst the community members. Receiving this award has really boosted our efforts. As a result of the award that we received, we have expanded our partnership and we've expanded our community programs with the implementation of a phase 2 of the project, which will be focused on improving market linkages and looking at more value-added production in the space. We're also now able to have greater regional and global representation. The project was showcased at SIDS 4. We have been invited to participate in the upcoming UN Oceans Conference. And there are a number of local conferences and workshops that we have also been invited to. We've been able to speak to the success of the project and how it has positively impacted on all the stakeholders involved and how all the partners are proud of the work that we have done. In terms of the process, the application process itself, I think, is relatively seamless. As a previous presenter mentioned, it's clear and it's nicely outlined what is required. But what advice I'd leave is for the awardees or the applicants to show your passion. You are working particularly in NGOs in small island developing states can be difficult. And oftentimes it is not as rewarding as work being done in other fields. But the reason why we all continue to do this is because we have a commitment and a passion to making an impact. So I'd encourage anybody that's applying for this grant to showcase the passion that you have, speak to how committed you are to the process, and speak to why you're so invested in this process as a result of how deeply you care about the change that you're making. Apologies about the slides not working, but that covers my presentation.
Michelle, on behalf of all the colleagues who are here listening to your presentation, I want to thank you very much for that. It shows a lot has been done. I'm encouraged to note that you are now expanding, participating as well at the Third Ocean Conference, which is encouraging. Like all the stories that we've heard today, colleagues, these are stories which showcase to us the importance of the award and how the award has managed to strengthen and expand the efforts that are being exerted in terms of partnerships around the small island developing states. So those are 3 stories we would like to bring to you about the SIDS Partnerships Award. And now I will invite my colleague, Misako Kajima, to please present to us a briefing about the award process from the Secretariat perspective. Sai, you have the floor. Thanks.
Thank you, Sai. I hope everyone can see my screen. Can you?
Yes, we can. Yeah.
Yes, we can. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you so much. So I would like to start by sharing the definition of partnerships. So when we talk about partnerships in a context of sustainable development, we refer to a collaboration between or among organizations from different stakeholders for a common vision, maximizing resources and competencies and sharing risks. It could be a project implemented by multiple entities that is driving sustainable development of SIDS. And the term multi-stakeholder partnership can refer to a significant range of structures, including networks made up of hundreds of organizations to joint ventures between 2 or 3 organizations, from local initiatives to the global ones, and single issued arrangements or multi-issue initiatives. So partnerships are mentioned across the ABAS, for example, in the context of ocean-based economies, energy transitions and energy efficiencies, reducing plastic pollutions in oceans, and biodiversity and data. What I would like to focus here is that there's a section dedicated to partnership. It says that the partnership should be based on mutual collaboration and ownership, trust, alignment, harmonization, respect, results orientation, accountability, transparency, including with relevant stakeholders. It also mentions expanding and diversifying partnerships with local authorities, CSOs, and NGOs, foundations, the private sector, academia, and international financial institutions, and also to leverage SIDS or South-South, North-South, and triangular cooperation. So in terms of eligibility for the awards, so the eligibilities are the following. All SIDS partnerships driving sustainable development of SIDS. SIDS are 37 member states and 20 associate members of regional commission. So I put here the link to the list of SIDS where you can see all the 37 member states and 20 associate members. And please make sure that the beneficiaries are among those listed. In the online form, we have this drop down where you can select multiple SIDS or associate members. Also, partnerships should be in line with SMART criteria and driving innovation. I'll get into that in more detail later in my presentation. And also, partnerships with goals and objectives and outputs and outcomes are clearly linked to the achievement of the ABAS and the SDGs. Partnerships must have demonstrated and documented impacts. We heard a lot of impacts as examples from the three representative sort of partnerships. What I want to also say here is the partnerships cannot be the one that's formed yesterday, for example. It should have some impact. Partnerships should verify their legitimacy. So please provide links to news articles or featured stories or evaluation report, which confirms the validity of the partnership. So what we don't want is select partnerships that do not exist. And lastly, the partnership should be ongoing and recently completed partnerships. The partnerships that are completed should be within last year, 2024. So as the co-chair mentioned, there are three categories: economic, environment, and social. So for this year, after the adoption of the ABAS, we have categorized the ABAS priority areas into these three categories. And some of these areas have been identified as cross-cutting. For example, on the slide here, data collection or science, technology, innovations, and of course, partnerships. These are identified as cross-cutting issues. So we are asking applicants to choose one of the three categories that are most closely aligned with the objectives of their partnership. I also put here the links to the ABAS. You will be able to see the full text of the ABAS here. So you're able to see all of what it says in ABAS in detail. So in a practical term, so how can you apply? So first, please read the rules and guidelines. It has everything you need to know, including eligibility process, links to the form. It also has a questionnaire that you will be answering on the online application form. It's attached as an appendix. So you'll be able to see the questions beforehand. And this online form has word limit. It's approximately 200 to 300 words. And the deadline is Friday, the 13th of June. And please make sure that the form is fully completed. We have created these questions to help you to provide the required information that we're looking for. Self-nominations and nominations by the third parties are both acceptable. Nominations can be submitted by governments, intergovernmental organizations, UN entities, major groups, and other relevant stakeholders like civil society organizations, academia, NGOs, and private sector. On the criteria, all partnerships will be evaluated based on SMART and innovation criteria. The details of these criteria are specified in the rules and guidelines, so please read that. But for here, I would like to highlight a few points. In terms of SIDS specific, beneficiaries must be SIDS in the list, as I mentioned earlier. Also, partnerships should demonstrate how they address gaps and challenges specific to SIDS. Measurable and monitorable. Partnerships should have clear goals and outputs and should have a system to monitor progress, for example, through monitoring and evaluation framework. On achievable and accountable. Partnerships should have governance structure, for example, through a steering committee. It should take inclusive approach of all partners and sharing experiences and lessons learned. On resource-based and resource-focused, partnerships should ensure sustainable resources for implementation in terms of funding and human resources, and should make sure there's tangible results verified by stakeholders. On timeline for implementation and transparency by all parties, partnerships should have clear timeline for deliverables and clear roles for partners and stakeholders and ensure transparency, for example, by sharing information. Innovation is a new criterion we added this year, as mentioned earlier by the co-chair. Innovation can be adopting new approaches to problem solving, exploring alternative methods, enhancing existing systems, and taking risks to create something original. So did the partnership introduce a new idea or concept or approach that have not been taken before, is something that you can ask to your partners or to yourselves. On the evaluation process, the award secretariat, that is UNDESA and UN OHRLS, will review all the applications based on SMART and innovation criteria. And we will have internal discussions and recommend 9 finalists. That is 3 per category to the judging panel. And then we will convene an interactive discussion between the judging panel members and the finalists. So this is kind of like an interview after the screening of the applications. And 1 representative from per partnership will be invited to do a 3-minute presentation. And this will be followed by Q&A session. And a judging panel member will evaluate the 9 finalists based on applications and interactive discussion based on the criteria by using a score sheet. The result will be announced at the award ceremony. And the ceremony will be held towards the end of this year. If you have any questions, please send us an email. We are monitoring the inbox. And this is the end of my presentation. Thank you.
So Ms. Kajima, I want to thank you very much for that presentation. I do trust that our colleagues who are joining us today have had some good insight into the processes that are involved in the SIDS Partnerships Award, the application process, the judging processes, and the award process. We also have had some good stories about how successful this story has been building over the years. And I'm looking at our time. I note that we are fast approaching. And I had taken a quick glance as well into the Q&A box. Fortunately, I didn't see any question there. So we've posted in the further information about those who spoke to us today. I want to thank you all for your attending this webinar. We are having another session which is the repeat of this, tomorrow morning for those colleagues in the ACE region and in the Caribbean region. We hope that there will be also participation in that series as well. We've also invited 3 other partnerships to brief that webinar talk tomorrow. But for this afternoon, I just want, on behalf of the Secretariat, the Joint Secretariat, I note my colleague, Mr. Francis, is joining us as well from HRLS. I note the co-chairs are still present, and all those of us who are from the United Nations Secretariat. I want to extend our sincere thanks to the speakers, to you, and to Michelle, and to and to our colleagues from the RC office in Cuba. Yaima, thank you very much for joining us this afternoon. And for those who are joining us from far away, thank you for your time and your interest. We are looking forward to applications for the SIDS Partnerships Award. And with those words, thank you kindly once again, and I hope that you will have a wonderful rest of the day. Thank you kindly.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good afternoon.
Thank you. Good afternoon.